She gave me courage when I was broken, strength when I was weak, and hope when I was lost, but when the world finally clapped for me, I acted as if she was never a part of my journey. My hands are shaking as I type this, but I need to get it out. Maybe someone will read this and not make the same catastrophic mistake I did. Her name was Sarah. Ace Sarah. She's still alive, still breathing, still walking around with the scars I gave her. I just can't think of her as mine anymore. Can't think of her as anything but the woman I destroyed. The night it happened I was riding high. 6 months earlier my startup had just gotten acquired for more money than I'd ever dreamed of. Tech blogs were calling me a visionary. Invitations to conferences, speaking engagements, networking events. Everyone wanted to meet the guy who built something from nothing. But here's what none of those articles mentioned when I was building that company in our cramped studio apartment. Eating ramen for the 5th night in a row. Sarah was working double shifts at the diner to keep us afloat. When I was having panic about failing, she'd hold me until I stopped shaking. When I wanted to quit after investor meeting number 47 went nowhere, she'd make me coffee and sit with me while I rewrote pitch decks until sunrise. She believed in me when I didn't believe in. So there I was at this industry party in Manhattan, champagne flowing, everyone on my every word. I felt like I was finally where I belonged, important. Respect to something. That's when I met Jessica. Jessica worked at one of those big consulting firms, had this effortless confidence that made everyone in the room gravitate toward her. She knew all the right people, spoke fluent startup, had opinions about market trends that actually mattered. When she laughed at my jokes, it felt different than Sarah's supportive giggles. It felt like recognition from someone who truly understood my world. Or that guy from the TechCrunch article, she said, and something pathetic inside me preened. Sarah never read TechCrunch. Sarah asked if I wanted her to DVR the cooking show she liked when I came home late from meetings. We talked for hours. About scaling, about the loneliness of leadership. She got it in ways Sarah never could. Sarah would nod and smile when I talked about work, but her eyes would glaze over. Jessica's eyes lit. "We should grab coffee sometime," she said as the party wound down. "I'd love to pick brain about pivoting in B2B markets." I should have said no. I should have thought about Sarah, probably asleep in our bed, probably having saved me leftovers from dinner even though I'd texted that I'd grab something at the event. I should have remembered that Sarah was the reason I could even afford to be at that party. Instead I gave Jessica my number. The coffee happened, then drinks, then dinners that went too late, conversations that got too personal, moments that lasted too long. I told it was networking, business development. I was building my professional circle. I was lying to as much as I was lying to Sarah. The night I crossed the line I'd been at another industry event. Sarah had texted asking when I'd be home, said she'd made my favorite pasta and wanted to hear about my day. I read the message and felt irritated. Couldn't she see I was busy? Couldn't she understand that this was important? Jessica was there, looking stunning as always, telling me about some opportunity her firm was considering. The way she looked at me when she talked about needing someone with vision made me feel like the successful man I'd always wanted to be. One thing led to another. Hotel room, terrible decisions. The kind of betrayal that happens in moments but echoes forever. I came home at 2 a.m. to find Sarah still awake, sitting at our kitchen table with 2 plates of cold pasta. She'd waited for me again. "How was the event?" she asked, and her smile was so genuine, so trusting that I felt something inside my chest. "Good," I said. "Really good networking opportunities." She cleaned dinner without complaint, me good night. Told me she was proud of me. I went to the bathroom and for 3 months, I lived in this horrible double. Sarah oblivious and loving, still packing me lunches and asking about my meetings. Jessica, intoxicating and ambitious, making me feel like I was finally playing in the big leagues. I convinced I was torn between two worlds like some tragic romantic hero. I wasn't torn, I was selfish. I was a coward who wanted to keep the woman who'd sacrificed everything for my dreams while also getting validation from someone who represented the success I'd achieved. The moment it all came crashing down was so mundane it was almost funny. Sarah was using my laptop to order groceries online when a message notification popped. Just a preview but enough. Jessica's name. The first few words of something that made Sarah's face go wait. I watched my entire implode in real time. Sarah didn't scream, didn't throw things. She just sat there for the longest 10 seconds of my staring at that message preview. Then she looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. "How long?" she asked. I could have lied. Should have lied. Instead, some twisted part of me thought honesty might save us. 3 months. She nodded like she was confirming something she'd suspected. Like all those late nights, all those work events. All those times I'd been distant, distracted suddenly made sense. "I need to leave," she said quietly. "Sir, please let me explain." Or leave. Now. I packed a bag with shaking hands while she sat perfectly still at the kitchen table. When I got to the door I turned back, hoping for, what? Forgiveness. A chance to grovel. She was crying silently, and it was the most horrible sound I'd never heard. That was 8 weeks ago. I'd been staying in hotels, then a sublet, trying to figure out how to put my back together. But here's what I'm learning: can't rebuild what burned down. Can't take back what destroyed. Can't love what chose to betray. The worst part, Jessica lost interest the moment the thrill of the secret was gone. Turns out she wasn't actually interested in me, just the excitement of being the other woman. When I suggested we try actually dating, she got uncomfortable and started talking about keeping things professional. So now I'm alone. Really, truly alone. No Sarah making coffee in the morning, no Sarah asking about my day, no Sarah believing in me even when I don't believe in. No Sarah at all. I've drafted 100 messages trying to apologize, to explain, to beg for another chance. I've deleted every one. What to say to someone whose trust obliterated? How to apologize for choosing temporary excitement over the person who loved unconditionally? The success I thought I wanted so badly feels hollow now. The recognition, the money, the respect, it all tastes like ashes when there's no one to share it with. No one who was there for the struggle and deserved to be there for the victory. I weigh the most real thing in my for a fantasy. I traded unconditional love for conditional admiration. I chose the woman who wanted the successful version of me over the woman who loved me when I was nothing. And now I have to live with that choice forever. 3 weeks after she kicked me out, I found out we weren't the only casualties of my stupidity. Turns out Sarah had been planning something that would have changed everything. And I destroyed it before I even knew it existed. Her sister Emma called me. We'd always gotten along well, family dinners and holiday gatherings where she'd tease me about being good enough for Sarah. Her voice on the phone was cold. Need to know what took from her, Emma said without any greeting. She was going to propose to point. The words hit like a physical. I actually had to sit down. She'd been saving for 8 months to buy a ring. Working those extra shifts, skipping lunches, telling me she wanted to surprise the man who'd worked so hard for his dreams. She was planning to do it after company celebration dinner next month. Had this whole speech prepared about how taught her that love means believing in someone even when they don't believe in themselves. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't speak. She showed me the ring last week. Simple band, nothing flashy, but she was so proud she could afford it. Said she wanted to be the one to propose because given her the courage to go after what she wanted. She was taking night classes, did know that. Business administration. Said she wanted to understand world better, maybe start something of her own someday. Every word was a Sarah, working herself to exhaustion. Sarah planning a future I was busy destroying. Sarah trying to grow into someone who could share my success while I was busy chasing someone who only wanted to share my bed. The night came home late from networking event. She was because she'd been practicing her proposal speech. She was so excited, Marcus so happy. She kept saying she finally felt like she deserved someone as driven as. I was crying now, sobbing that echoed in my empty sublet apartment. She returned the ring yesterday, Emma continued, her voice never losing that Arctic tone. 8 months of savings gone. Just like that. Didn't just break her heart, Marcus, broke her faith in love itself. After Emma hung, I sat on my floor for 3 hours. Just sat there, imagining Sarah practicing a proposal speech while I was betraying everything we'd built. Imagining her excitement, her nervousness, her hope for our future while I was actively destroying it. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was what happened when word got out. At first, I thought I could keep my professional separate from my personal disaster. I was wrong about that too. It started with Jessica. Apparently she'd been bragging to colleagues about her connection with me. When things ended between us, she got vindictive. Started telling people at industry events that I was emotionally unavailable and probably a serial cheater. Said I'd let her on, made promises I couldn't keep. The tech world is smaller than think. Gossip travels fast, especially when it's about someone who's been getting a lot of attention. Within weeks, whispers were following me into meetings. Conversations would stop when I walked into rooms. Invitations started drying. Then Sarah's story started making rounds too, but not from her. She never said a word publicly. Never posted anything bitter on social media. Never tried to damage my reputation. She just disappeared from my completely, with a dignity I'd never possessed. But her friends knew. Her coworkers knew. And in a city where everyone knows someone who knows someone, stories have a way of spreading. Suddenly, I wasn't just the cheater who'd broken his girlfriend's heart. I was the monster who'd betrayed the woman who'd sacrificed everything for his success. People started looking at me differently. Like they were wondering what else I was capable of. If I could betray someone who loved me unconditionally, what would I do to business partners, investors, employees? The worst moment came at a tech conference 6 weeks after Sarah left. I was giving a keynote about building success from nothing. Ironic title in retrospect. Halfway through my presentation, I saw a familiar face in the audience. It was David, Sarah's coworker from the diner. He'd come to a few of our parties, always seemed like a good guy. He was sitting in the third row, just staring at me with this look of complete disgust. I stumbled over my words, lost my train of thought, started talking about how important it is to stay grounded and remember the people who support. The hypocrisy was so thick I could taste it. After the presentation, David approached me. Nice speech, he said. Really inspiring stuff about loyalty and gratitude. Sarah would have loved it. He walked away before I could respond. But the real nightmare started when I tried to move on. Started dating again. Because word had gotten out about who I really was. First date went fine until she Googled me afterward. Never heard from her again. Second date lasted exactly 30 minutes before she got a text from a friend warning her about that startup guy who cheated on his girlfriend. By the third failed attempt, I realized my reputation preceded me everywhere. I wasn't just Marcus the entrepreneur anymore. I was Marcus the cheater. Marcus the guy who betrayed the woman who made his success possible. I started seeing a therapist. Dr. Rachel Chen, recommended by someone who'd been through their own relationship disasters. First session, she asked me to describe what I'd lost. I lost Sarah, I said. What else? I thought about it. I lost my integrity, I guess, my reputation. Self-respect. What else? It took me 40 minutes to realize what she was getting at. I hadn't just lost Sarah. I'd lost the version of that Sarah had believed in. The man she'd seen when she looked at me wasn't just gone, he'd never existed in the first place. The man she'd loved was someone who would never have cheated on her. Someone who understood loyalty, who valued love over ego, who remembered where he came from. I'd been cosplaying as that man for 3 years while being someone completely different underneath. Or grieving multiple losses, Dr. Chen said. The relationship, yes. But also the person thought were and the person could have been. That night, I made a list of everything I'd lost Sarah. Obviously. The woman who loved me, believed in me, sacrificed for me, the proposal, the future she'd been planning, that we could have built together. My self-respect, the ability to look in the mirror without hating what I saw, my reputation, professional relationship built on trust that would never fully recover. The right to complain about being lonely, when destroy love, don't get to be sad about not having it, sleep. Peace of mind. The ability to enjoy my success, the version of my story where I was the hero instead of the villain. But the thing that kept me at night wasn't what I'd lost. It was what Sarah had lost, her faith in love, her 8 months of savings, her excitement about our future, her belief that hard work and loyalty were rewarded. Her trust in the man she'd supported through everything. I'd taken someone who believed in happily ever after and turned her into someone who probably questions every relationship that comes after me. I'd taken someone generous and trusting and taught her that love makes vulnerable to betrayal. Somewhere out there, Sarah was probably having trouble trusting again. Probably questioning her judgment. Probably wondering if she'd 3 years of her on someone who never deserved her. And that was on me. Forever. The worst part of part 2. I was about to discover that losing Sarah and my reputation was only the beginning of the consequences. The real cost was still coming. 6 months later, I learned what real consequences look like. I thought I'd hit rock bottom with the reputation damage and failed dating attempts. I thought losing Sarah and living with guilt was my punishment. I was wrong. The universe wasn't done with me yet. It started with a phone call from my business partner, Jake. We'd been friends since college, built the company together from day one. He'd been quiet lately, distant in meetings, but I figured he was dealing with his own post-acquisition adjustment stress. "We need to talk," he said. In person his voice had that tone. The one that means everything's about to change. We met at the coffee shop where we'd planned our first product 3 years ago. Back when Sarah would drop off sandwiches for our brainstorming sessions and refuse to let us pay her back. Back when we were broke and hungry and full of dreams instead of money and regret. Jake didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I'm buying out," he said. The words didn't compute at first. "What? Shares?" "I'm exercising the clause in our partnership agreement. I'm buying out and removing from the board." My went cold. "Jake, what are talking about? We built this together." "Yeah, we did. Me and Sarah. Remember her? The woman who kept us fed when we couldn't afford groceries. Who let us use her car when ours died. Who believed in us when no one else would." His voice was getting louder. People were starting to stare. "Want to know why I'm doing this? Because 2 weeks ago I had lunch with Sarah." My heart stopped. She needed someone to be a reference for a job application. Some business administration position at a nonprofit. Know what she told me? She said she didn't feel comfortable listing the volunteer work she did for our company, because she was afraid potential employers would contact and she didn't want to cause any trouble. Jake leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt more terrifying than shouting. She was protecting Marcus even after what did, she was still protecting. That's the kind of person Sarah is. And her away like garbage. I tried to speak, but he wasn't finished. Know what else she told me? She said she wasn't sure if deserved the job because she'd clearly shown poor judgment in relationships, and was worried it would reflect on her professionally. She's questioning her own worth because of what did to her. Each word was a sledgehammer to my chest. I can't be partners with someone who could destroy a person like that. I can't trust someone who could betray unconditional love. What happens when things get tough in business? What happens when loyalty becomes inconvenient? I've seen what capable of. The buyout was legal, clean, final. Jake had every right to exercise that clause and the lawyers confirmed it. Within 30 days I went from co-founder to former co-founder. From entrepreneur to unemployed. But losing the company was just the beginning of how that 6-month mark changed everything. 3 days after Jake's ultimatum, I got a call from my mom. "Father and I need to talk to." My parents had been divorced for 10 years, but they were meeting together to discuss me. That's never a good sign. They came to my apartment, sat on my second-hand couch, and looked at me like I was a stranger. "We're raised better than," Mother said quietly. My father, usually the less emotional parent, was the one who looked angry. "We love Sarah," he said. "She was family to us. Brought her to every holiday, every birthday, every important moment for 3 years. We watched her work herself to exhaustion supporting dreams. We watched her light when she talked about future together." Mom was crying now. "She called me last week," she continued. "Did know that. Called to apologize, said she was sorry things hadn't worked out, and that she hoped we could maintain a relationship with despite everything. Even after destroyed her, she was worried about relationship with own parents. They'd driven 3 hours to tell me they were ashamed of me. Not disappointed, ashamed. We don't know who became," Dad said as they left. "But it's not the son we raised." That night I sat in my empty apartment and realized I'd lost more than a girlfriend, a company, and my reputation. I'd lost my family's respect. I'd lost their pride in me. I'd lost the right to come home for holidays without everyone remembering what I'd done. But the real knockout punch came 2 weeks later. I was at the grocery store, the fancy one I used to avoid when Sarah and I were broke. Standing in the produce section, trying to remember how to buy food for one person instead of two, when I heard a laugh I recognized. Sarah's laugh. I turned around, and there she was, 20 feet away, standing with a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, seemed kind, was making her smile in a way I hadn't seen in months before I'd ruined everything. She looked happy. Not the forced happiness of someone trying to move on, but genuine joy. Her hair was different, shorter. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen, something bright and confident. She looked like someone who'd remembered she deserved good things. The man she was with picked an apple, said something that made her laugh again, and casually put his hand on the small of her back. It was such a simple gesture. But it was everything I'd lost the right to do. I watched him for exactly 30 seconds before the pain became unbearable. I abandoned my cart and left the store, hands shaking so badly I could barely start my car. That night, the full weight of what I'd done finally hit me. Sarah wasn't just moving on from me, she was becoming someone new. Someone who could love and be loved without the scars I'd given her. Someone who could trust again, laugh again, plan a future again. And I was never going to be part of that story. Never going to be the person who made her smile like that. Never going to be the man who got to love the woman she was becoming. I'd had a front row seat to watch someone become their best self, and I'd chosen to destroy it instead of protect it. That realization broke something in me that I don't think will ever heal. It's been a year now since I made the worst decision of my. I've been in therapy, trying to understand how I became someone capable of such cruelty. I've rebuilt my career, started a new company, tried to prove I learned something from losing everything. But success feels different now, empty. Every achievement is hollow because there's no one who cares about the journey behind it. No one who remembers when I was nothing and chose to love me anyway. I tried reaching out to Sarah once, 6 months ago. Not to win her back, just to apologize properly. To tell her she deserved better than I ever gave her. To acknowledge that she was the real architect of my success and I'd been too selfish, and to protect that. She never responded. I don't blame her. What do say to someone who destroyed faith and love? How to acknowledge an apology from someone who taught that loyalty is weakness and trust is dangerous? I see her sometimes around the city. Always from a distance. Always with that same man, who I've learned through mutual friends treats her the way I should have. Who celebrates her, supports her dreams, makes her feel valued instead of taken for granted. She got promoted at that nonprofit job. Started a program that helps women entrepreneurs get their businesses off the ground. Turned her pain into purpose, her experience into empathy for us trying to build something from nothing. She became everything I pretended to be. And I became everything I swore I'd never be. The worst part isn't the loneliness, though the nights are brutal. It isn't the professional consequences, though starting over at 32 is humbling. It isn't even watching the love of my love someone else, though that feels like dying a little every time. The worst part is knowing that I had everything I ever wanted, and I destroyed it because I thought I deserved more. I had a woman who loved me unconditionally, and I traded her for conditional admiration from someone who never cared about me at all. I had someone who believed in me when I was broken, gave me strength when I was weak, and hope when I was lost. When the world finally started clapping for me, I acted like she was never part of my journey. She gave me everything and I gave her nothing but pain in return. If you're reading this and recognize in my story, stop. Stop before become me. Stop before trade real love for validation. Stop before destroy the person who loves for the person who only loves success. Because once cross that line, once betray someone who trusted completely, don't get to go back, don't get to undo it, don't get to be the hero of own story anymore, just get to be the cautionary tale. And trust me, that's no way to live.